Hello everyone, my name's Cliff and welcome back to my channel. This is Cliff's Dark Gems. Today I'm going to be doing a little wrap up of the books I've read so far in August for GarbAugust, and just a book that I finished off at the beginning of the month that I started in the month of July. Stay tuned. Okay everyone, first of all I have to say it's great to be back. We did experience some technical difficulties over the last week, and yeah, it is really great to be back speaking books with all of you, which is what I love. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to posting videos regularly again, and I hope you'll enjoy them. First of all, I'd like to say is I would like you to comment on my community side of my channel, because I'm doing a question and answer on Friday, and I've had a lot of questions already, but feel free to add a few more in. This is in celebration of me getting 500 subscribers, which I'm very happy about, obviously. So please feel free to ask me anything, obviously within reason, but yeah, pretty much anything you want to know about me. Okay, first of all, let's talk about a book that I finished at the beginning of the month. And that was a book I started in July that was on my TBR last month, and that is Neil Gaiman, Trigger Warning. And that is Trigger Warning, Short Fictions and Disturbances. And this is obviously a compilation of short stories, and to be honest, I was a little bit disappointed. I love Neil Gaiman, and out of all the novels and short story collections that I've read by him, this is my least favourite. I gave it 3 stars on Goodreads, which is not bad, because there are some gems in here, but it's very much hit and miss, and I don't know, the stories just seem a little bit uneven. It's also, a lot of them are not horror. Yes, horror, fantasy, a lot of them are well written, but he seemed to be a little bit more experimental in his stories. You know, there's one story in particular that I remember that was just made up of sentences, and yeah, it didn't really do anything for me. There are, however, 2 stories that I would like to talk about, just very, very briefly. And the first one being, let's just find the name, The Truth is a Cave in the Black Mountain. Now, this is an excellent story. It is about a dwarf and a man. It is about greed. It is about bloody revenge. And it is about a cave full of gold. But this is not just any gold, it's tainted gold. And it has almost a quest feel about it. It's one of the longer stories in the compilation, or in the collection, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's very well told, and it's actually got a very decent climax. And it's not just about going to retrieve this gold. There's a hell of a lot more about it, and the puzzle sort of unravels as you read the story. Yeah, so that is The Truth is a Cave in the Black Mountain. The next one is The Man Who Forgot Ray Bradbury. Now, Ray Bradbury is one of my favourite authors. I absolutely love his work, and I'm determined to carry on getting through all his work, particularly his science fiction, because there's so much I've not read. I'm more into horror, so I've read a lot of his horror short stories. You know, I absolutely loved that Carnival one, and yeah, this little story, it's quite short, is a tribute to Ray Bradbury. And I know that Neil Gaiman viewed Ray Bradbury with sort of reverence. He was almost like a mentor to him. And when he was dying in hospital, Neil Gaiman sent him this story, this tribute, and Ray Bradbury answered back thanking him. So yeah, this is a lovely little story. As I said, the rest of this book is, yeah, it's not the greatest, but there are still some stories worth checking out in there. And I think one of the problems as well is that a lot of the stories have been published in other collections, and that is a problem for a lot of people as well. That is Trigger Warning, Short Fictions and Disturbances. Okay, next up we're going to go to 2 books I've read so far for GarbAugust. Doesn't seem like many, but hey, that's okay, I'll catch up. But the first one is a very excellent medical thriller. I found it pretty terrifying. And this was a reread for me. I actually read it when I was a teenager, and I think I gave it about 2.5, 3 stars. But this time I gave it 4 stars. A really excellent read. And that is Coma. Now, this ticks the box with the thing that is set in the hospital. And it's about a medical student. She's a 3rd year medical student called Susan. And she goes along with other students to this hospital, obviously to learn, to attend lectures, to obviously take part in the practical things that happen in a hospital so that you can learn. Now, on her first day there, she witnesses 2 things, two patients that are in a coma. The second being one that she actually saw before the operation, and it was supposed to be just a normal kind of knee op, something that was totally basic. And this guy ends up in a coma, sort of brain dead, but his heart still beating, and this really distresses her because she had formed some sort of bond with him, even though that's unethical, and she's determined to get to the bottom of this. And she goes about doing this kind of almost obsessively. She doesn't attend her lectures, she doesn't follow the rest of the students around, and she gets away with it even though she kind of runs into authorities that keep warning her, you're not supposed to be prying into this, you're a student, what the hell are you doing? But she starts to unravel some very sinister things that are happening at this hospital. Now, I found this a very, very creative, very original thriller. It's not so much a horror, but it really maintains, Robin Cook maintains this tension and it's chilling and this sense of dread and what's actually happening in this hospital, which I'm not going to go into too much detail. And also Susan has this relationship with one of the doctors that work there, so she kind of has some sort of support. But this also puts him in jeopardy in terms of his position in the hospital, and she finds herself increasingly alone, but determined to get to the bottom of what's actually happening in this hospital. So yeah, it's incredible. It's actually a very, very good thriller. It does have a few problems for me. I think one of the problems is that there's a lot of medical jargon, pages sometimes of stuff that goes on in the hospital with IV drips and sort of blood types and all sorts of stuff that kind of went over my head. A lot of it is interesting, but a lot of it took away the flow of the narrative for me. And I also found that a lot of the stuff that Susan went through in the hospital is just kind of unrealistic. It didn't seem like that would be true in real life, that she wouldn't be treated in the way she was, that people let her just get on with it even though they were supposedly against it. I don't think that would happen in real life. Yeah, so there was a bit of a sort of a sense of unrealism about the novel in that sense. But still, it was very exciting and well worth a read. That is Robin Cook, Coma. It was a great second read for me. Okay, and lastly, I read the book that actually covers a prompt, the main weekly prompt of reading either a romance or a trashy men's adventure. I chose the trashy men's adventure and I chose Tarzan and the AntMan. Now this thing took me completely by surprise, and I kind of wished that I'd followed it, or actually I kind of wished that I'd read the very first Tarzan, because this is the 10th in the series and I absolutely loved it. It was thrilling, at times seriously brutal, and I know that Michael K. Vaughan talks about these kind of novels a hell of a lot, kind of these trashy, pulpy adventure stories. And if you haven't checked out his channel, if you've been living under a rock, if you haven't checked out his channel, he's very awesome and entertaining. But yeah, this was a hell of a lot of fun and took me by surprise. And it's about Tarzan, and in the beginning of the story, it took me by surprise as well, because hey, he can fly a plane. And he's not just living in the jungle, like I thought he would be. So, as I say, this is part 10 of a series. And he flies his plane kind of over his land, and he ends up in a kind of area that's almost like a lost world. An area that originally he couldn't come across because there's this barrier of thorns or bushes or whatever, and it's just too hard for them to get across. and he tries to take a deeper look, closer look, and he circles his plane and he crashes. Now things become very entertaining from there, because you meet these creatures and they're like cavemen, but rather than the caveman beating the cave woman over the head and dragging her to the cave, it's the opposite, the other way around. The cave women are these huge women, hugely muscular, and they rule the roost. And so Tarzan is captured, and now what's he going to do? Not going to tell you anything more, except for later on that he meets another civilization, and that's where the Ant-Men come into play. Now this civilization is people that are like less than a foot tall, or a foot tall, and it's just absolutely wonderful. It's a wonderful adventure story. It dips quite deep into the society of these people, and how Tarzan becomes kind of embroiled in their society, becomes involved in their society, and it goes to some very strange, bizarre places. I'm not going to spoil it for you. You really should try and pick it up. And yeah, he runs into all sorts of situations, friends and enemies. And I just have to warn you, this is not a children's adventure. There's a lot of bashing over the head, a lot of concussions, cracked skulls, so it's actually kind of brutal, but it's a hell of a lot of fun. And I mean, the question comes, is he ever going to be able to get out of this situation? It reminds me a little bit about Gulliver's Travels with Lilliput, the creatures. But is he ever going to get out of the situation he finds himself in, which I'm not going to talk about. But he really does become kind of part of the society. The ant people actually have these two different societies, and he becomes part of the one. And yeah, is he ever going to make his way home? He makes friends along the way, makes enemies, but yeah, a lot of fun. And it was outside of my comfort zone, but I really, really enjoyed it. And I think I'm definitely going to try and track down the first ones, actually part 1 to part 9. Because this, even though I gave it 4 stars, the more I think about it, it's maybe 4.5 stars, closer to 5 stars. I think the one thing that turned me off is that even though the strength of the book is that it really describes the detail of the societies and the people and the way they live, and really complex, and the way they build their, you want to call it a city or whatever you want to call it, it sometimes goes into a little bit too much detail, and that, once again, that slows the narrative a bit. So there were some parts where I was going, okay, I get it. This is about architecture, this is about building, but I want to know more about the story. Okay, let's move the story on. And then another thing that annoyed me a little bit is some of the names. I mean, if I just open up this book, let's see, you've got the Minuanins, and then the friendship of GarbAugust. That's the name of one of the characters, GarbAugust. And so all of them had names like that, so I had no idea eventually who was talking about who. Look, but it was still a hell of a lot of fun. And I also had to read this book very carefully because it's kind of falling apart, and it looks like it has coffee stains and, I don't know, alcohol stains, cigarette stains all over the book, and the spine is coming apart, so I had to read it very carefully. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. And then, yeah, Tarzan and the Ant-Man. I'm going to look out for part 1. Okay everyone, so before we go, let me just talk about a book I've just picked up as week 2, and this is the prompt for Paperback from Hell. And I know this is actually mentioned in Paperback from Hell, and that's Ramsey Campbell, The Face That Must Die. And I've really looked at it. It's got a long introduction, and it looks a lot of fun. I think it's about a psycho killer, homophobic killer in Liverpool, and yeah, it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. So I'm going to start reading that tonight. Right, so that's it. That is my wrap up so far for GarbAugust. I hope you enjoyed that. If you like my content, please like and subscribe. and keep those pages turning and take care of yourselves. Until next time, cheers.